So and so, like on top of that, like you chasing like nervous system issues and stuff like that to improve performance instead of just ringing the old bell that we have to put more weight on the bar all the time. I'm assuming you're also seeing less injury in athletes.
Yeah.
And then you also are really involved with RPR.
Yes.
I'll let you explain that. I've had JL on the show a while back, and it's always been a bit witchcrafty.
Yeah, and really what RPR is a series of reflexes that will make changes in the body that it's pretty crazy when you apply them yourself, that you can take various muscles and activate them for a period of time, whether it's long term. It just depends on the state that you're in. Like I've had people break their foot, their glute shuts off. Well, I can turn it on, but it's going to shut back off. We know that, right? Healthy people, I've seen it last for weeks, right? But ultimately, they do it every day to themselves. You hit these various spots, and athletes turn their muscles on. Things are functioning correctly, so then you're less likely to cause injury, knee pains, things like that. You become more mobile. You take the restrictors off your body that the brain has put on because you have injuries in the past or just the way you don't move.
Yeah,
during the day.
My right glute now basically doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yep.
Yeah, right?
It's just a fucking mud flap hanging back
Yeah,
there now.
so RPR, right? It's crazy. I was just at the Women's Ice Hockey World Championships, and there's various team that beat us was doing it. And you're like, well, it's not always an edge in it, but other teams out there were doing it in the parking lot.
That's cool.
We were warming. Yeah. So it's kind of a pretty, and people, I get stories every day about people using it, just getting some great response and recovery, right? Like the one big thing is it puts you in a better spot. It's like especially when you release the diaphragm and your breathing gets released. Because the one thing I know a lot of people do breathing things, but with RPR we hit and RPR work with all those other breathing things.
It's
right?
not one or the other.
No.
It's both.
Right? And that's the thing with RPR. We release the diaphragm tissue around it. So then when you do the breathing, it actually opens it up more. Some of the things we do, like massage therapists have found that just doing RPR spots on a hamstring before, they get a better response because now they're digging. So it works with it. I tell people it works with anything. It's not that or RPR or nothing. No, it don't change.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is that people doing it themselves, Maddie, you're like, you have the athlete do the RPR and then have them come in and do what you want to do. Like it's that simple.
Right. And it's pretty quick. Like, I mean, it's something that I fall out of practice with.
Right. And me too. Right. Cause I'm doing an exercise. I'm like, this feels like dog shit today, but I'll hit my spot. There it feels better. You know what I mean? And I mean, I should know it. I know it maybe better than anybody on the planet besides maybe Chris, but we're going okay. But yeah, so it's just, and all my athletes use it. They run through it in their warm up. It doesn't take any more time, right? We just do a warm up and they do it as they're doing their warm up, and that's it.
Right, and it's really simple. There's a chest rubbed up the sternum, your collarbone.
Yeah, like 1 inch over your belly, like to hit your psoas. Your glutes are behind. The crazy one is like the glutes. You just rub the base of your skull in the back, and then right behind your jaw. And there's two spots. So the one in the skull, the reason we believe it's that for your glute, your butt muscle is right behind the skull, is because so glutes are an extension pattern for everybody. Your first extension pattern as a child is to root for food, and you're using that muscle in the back of your skull.
Oh man,
right?
I love epidemiology.
Yeah. Well, then think about the next extension pattern is to open your mouth to eat. So that's why we go right behind the jaw. Yes.
Fascinating to just turn the glutes on.
To turn, and we've checked it. Like I checked, it's never not worked. So for people out there, there's a coaching course with RPR, but there's also an individual course. It's not the $300 coaching course, right? It's a quick $125 and we just released it about a month ago, and people are buying it to just, hey, my daughter plays soccer. I'm like, just take this 40-minute course, learn all the spots. And
man, that's great.
Yeah, right. But so the beauty of it is that with RPR, you're like, it's self-care. So then the coaches don't have to do it. They just make sure they warm up with it, and they're out. And that's the beauty. Like when I first started doing it, I would do it all manually. I mean, there was a time where I went to an organization, I was doing it manually, and my fingernail fell off later because I was
working on people.
Yeah, it was brutal.
And now, I say witchcraft with it. Like all of that makes sense to me, but we've also, I mean, you've seen it bring up old trauma and lots of unexpected,
Yes.
I guess, situations.
Yeah, so a lot of times that when you have trauma, it's a molecule in the body, and it appears to be stored in various tissues. And sometimes RPR has released that in people, so they feel that same emotion.
Whoa.
And it comes out of the tissue, because then when we go back there, it's not there anymore. So once you release it, but people are carrying that trauma. And there's been some crazy ones, like it's just simple ones where one of the worst ones I've ever dealt with was an Olympic athlete, and we were working on her, and she started getting upset, and then I stopped, sat there with her. About a half hour later, after crying, she had broken her hand before the Olympic tryouts. So her whole life was spent training for the Olympics, and you know how this would feel. And that broken hand might have kept her out.
Wow.
And the way she felt. So years later, that came back. She stored that in her body. Like, that was trauma. Now, another trauma that was really bad for a 50-year-old male was he was running his tricycle into his sister, and his dad hung it up and told him he couldn't have it for like 2 weeks. But when you're 4 years old.
Hey, man, look, it's easy to look at kids and emotion and the way they handle problems as a fucking idiot kids.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the reason kids cry over spilled milk, it's literally the worst thing that's ever happened to them in their existence. They don't have the measuring stick that we do of perspective, which is perhaps why I have such a problem with participation trophies, that you've never dealt with failure.
Yes.
You've never dealt with disappointment, and so whenever it starts to rear itself as an adult, you feel like, well, this isn't fair. This isn't the way I've been fucking expected to live my life. Please remove this as a thing I'll have to deal with. And so everything is fucking spilled milk. Everything's the worst thing you've ever dealt with.
It's that person's perception.
Yes.
Right? And it's real.
Right. In the same way, I don't want that guy embarrassed to be like, yo, that fucked me up, oddly enough.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. But they didn't even know what was causing this, like, ache in them, whatever it was. It might have been bad. And then when it's released, they knew what it was, because they remember how it felt.
What an interesting.
Now, it can be crazy, right? Crazy levels of stuff in regards to people's layers.
Really? So now, is this kind of more like the body keeps a score? Like,
yes, that's exactly. Yeah,
how it's stored within the fascia and trauma.
Yep,
right.
That's a book people can read. It's exactly what's going on.
While we're doing this, I know you. Where can people actually get the course?
Reflexiveperformance.com.
And you said that we have an affiliate code we can share?
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes,
okay, cool.
I think.
We'll just use the code UMSO.
Yeah.
And save yourself a little bit and try this out.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen you do it at Sorenex, at Summer Strong, and, like, I mean, oddly enough, it does get treated like Cal's going to put on this magic show.
Yeah. Well,
working on people.
I do have a skill set, though. I think even I just have seen and have learned for the last decade about this and how people respond, because, like, so when I say that, I mean, to watch you move, and if your foot's doing something wrong, then I know a spot over on your right, the opposite hip, can fix that foot problem. So this whole thing's like the fascia, the way it runs through the body. There's books like Anatomy Trains. It tells you all this. Well, it's crazy how our body compensates instantly so fast. So you go back to the goat drill that we were talking about.
Right.
There's so much information running into the body. Think about how if you step on a stone and injure your foot, you can still take the next step, and your body's just rewired everything that instantly.
To avoid that pain again.
Well, not to avoid it, but just to keep running, to survive, maybe.
Sure.
So, or maybe to avoid the pain. Oh, yeah, you're avoiding the pain of the next step so it doesn't hurt that bad. You're actually sometimes compensating, and you don't even know the pain's there. Yet, the brain knows there's pain there, but you don't consciously know it yet.
Right.